Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Troublemaker. This is Clash of the Clans 2 coverage. Losers bracket. Doesn't mean it's a bad bracket because the champion of the loser will face the quarter round of the winner. I think that's how it works. Anyway, we have two great teams here. We have first playing NATO, magical color blue, Ciemni. And their opponents playing as red, the evil organization, the Pact. We have the Fourth Shock Army, yes. And for Ciemni, we have Kemmel, Nexel, Bagniuski, and Grover. And for the Fourth Army, we have Soviet Comrade, Fourth Pengu, 14 Cabin Hat, and Dr. KGB. Now, this is a really oddball map. It's really hard to describe how odd this map is. Oh, I should also mention that the winner of this will in fact go on to face WUT, who lost their last match and have just jumped into the loser's bracket. But having said that, yes, very oddball map. It very much invokes the flavor of the campaign. If you ever played the campaign, the points that you held before are the points that you get now. So the general strategy is to hold a base that's next to the one you want to attack. And what happens is, instead of using roads, everyone rallies along the borders in hopes of hitting some pretty lucky shots. And right off the bat, we're seeing some pretty parallel strats here as far as this border goes. We have ridiculous amounts of tanks, gratuitous amounts of tanks being deployed to try and grab this land base. A call for attack by the Dr. KGB, which is actually my girlfriend's initials. She is a doctor, and she is... well, I can't tell you her name, but let us say her initials are KGB. So maybe this is my girlfriend playing behind my back. Who knows? I don't know if she joined up with the Fourth Shock Army, though. And yeah, so because of this, this becomes a pretty major consistent battleground. What ends up happening on this map is you have 2 points that are very easy to take, and they're the 2 high point bases. And then you have all these other awkward bases which just don't fit in so well. For example, this flank will be fighting for Lima and Echo. This one is not as close to Echo though, so it will be in a little more trouble. It has to get Lima in order to get Echo. It has no choice whatsoever. So there's some minor map imbalances here. Going to work very well in the favor of Ciemni. Hope that's their name. I hope it's like that name, Ciemni, the musical artist. If you've never heard of this guy, and you may have not, definitely look him up on YouTube. Ciemni, which is spelt Simeon, is one of the greatest musicians of our time. And right off the bat, we're going to go see an air superiority fighter from the Fourth Army. Absolutely no Air Force being deployed here by Ciemni. Ciemni. That's going to bother me for a while. And as I said, right off the bat, huge advantage goes up to our blue team, able to get Echo, and they will create a nice little round flank here. Infantry and their MD Jupiters, completely unarmored vehicle, going to almost throw away all the army there, trying to get these bases in the middle here. As gratuitous amounts of tanks are fighting right now, even the command vehicle is fighting this battle. That's how big the battle this is. This is one of the big battles to decide it all, because if they can grab Lima, they can cancel out Echo. That is a huge advantage. And if there is other important stuff happening here, I'm probably going to ignore it, because this is the big decider. This is where all the big tanks are. And look at this, using the Urals up front to disguise his T-72s, hoping that he can stop them and resupply his T-72s so they don't die. He's actually moving up a little bit too close, however. And actually, I think Blue's going to run out of tanks and vehicles before this happens, as my dog begins to scratch himself and annoy the crap out of me. T-80U is actually completely out of reflex rockets. It's been the most cost-effective tank here, but one thing that's kind of funny is that even though it's firing, it still has this point secured, and it's really just bizarre. We just don't get to see this in the game. And look how much infantry is getting deployed up to this flank here. He kind of realizes by this point, like, this flank is in trouble right now. Lots of infantry running across, going to work pretty well for them, as T-72s don't really shoot infantry all that well. Most of them don't have infantry weapons, and most of them aren't firing. So the Challenger actually able to wipe the smile off the face of the Fourth Army. But we're going to see a full pullback here. Challenger going to go away. Chieftain going to go away. Big old rocket being deployed. Will it hit a target? That's a good question. Probably not. Conquers in the middle base, and this is absolutely going to go to red. Huge victory right off the bat on Lima. Note, however, just overwhelmingly, the 4th Army has map everywhere, and in fact, ooh, wow! That is such a huge mistake. Huge mistake. Gulf and India not taken by Ciemni. They're going to try and win this with a huge push, and this could work out very poorly against them. We now see it that the 4th Army actually is at +4 right now, which means that it's going to take a long time for them to catch up. They just don't have commands available for these positions. Instead, they're going for strategic locations like this base here and this base here, but they're not going for the very important 2-point bases. These infantry are holding ground all over the place, but they're not securing bases, and that's going to be a big problem for them. They need to get some commands out fast, and they just continue rallying lots of infantry. Too fearful of that retribution. We see a strategic Air Force option here. Going to try and drop some napalm on top of these infantry here and just flush out this area. Been a very consistent strategy. And here comes another napalm on top of that. And I mean, these infantry are very, very cost effective. I'm not going to deny that whatsoever. They're insanely cost effective. But without positions, he's in trouble. Now, we have moved to a +3, which indicates he's grabbed another zone. But he does need to get these +2. We have one command moving to India. That'll bring him down to +1. Sorry, down to +2 again. And we have another one hopefully moving out soon. Maybe a Grizzly CP, a Canadian vehicle. Canada. And this T80 UK has been the most aggressive one so far that I have seen this tournament. I've never actually seen it one. And look at that great side angle shot here from the Bradley IFV. Gets picked off by a T80U. Okay, now what I'm going to do at the end of this match, and just remind me, people, is I'm going to look at the number of kills this T80 UK has gotten. So it's from Pengu to T80 UK. I just like to see that. So far, the game's going insanely fast. Still needs to grab this 2-point base just to get some neutral, just to fight for territories. And one command out of place for a second here needs to... Oh, I'm sorry, there's a cancellation here. In fact, I'm going to go along this edge here and try and place infantry around a flanking position. So far being denied here by these Pietro Zemeckis, but that could not last long. It only needs one more group of infantry like this one carried by the Lot 25 to break through this and eventually get this command armory, or command vehicle I should say here. Yeah, like now we're going to see some kind of craziness here because he can run Schlieffen around this corner and take off a lot of stuff, and there's not much AT wise in this area. It's all infantry. There's air superiority, or sorry, anti-air mortar rolling 2s here. We see an AA helicopter here, which of course does not fire against land targets, but that's enough to scare these tanks. It actually has the stinger. It doesn't. You know, anytime you see OH in the name of a helicopter, just automatically assume that's an AA helicopter. Don't even do the I key on it. Just automatically assume it's an anti-air. And I mean, yeah, amazingly red is holding onto this ground. I thought for sure that this WD-43 Jeep was going to be gone for quite some time, but no, it's actually surviving quite well despite very few forces here. Now, it won't last too much longer, that's for sure, but it's still around, which is very surprising. A little bit of a free AT being killed there. Challenger's still firing. I'm not sure what it's firing. Maybe this Mitte-Leville. No, he's actually got a T-72 in his targets. And yeah, like I said, this is a great opportunity to just push across here, get himself a command kill. It can happen. He can do it. Right now, of course, he's playing a little bit passively. Doesn't really know what's going on. He wants to get all of the infantry from this town first. And he's going to bring some of these scout carriers in and drop them on top. And just too many, though. There's like 50, 60, 90, 150, 160, 100. There's 170 infantry. Actually, this is a place you should ignore right now, guys. Probably doesn't know, of course, how many freaking there are. Looks like another free T-72 going to get killed by Hey, you're ahead of me. And just infantry crazy here from Grober. Able to do some pretty crazy damage. And I mean, Pengu is just so arrogant here. He has a T-80 UK at a complete entrance here. If I was on the blue team, the navy blue, or it's light blue, I think it's light blue, the light blue NATO team, I would be just bombing that with a bomber, like this intruder. There's no reason for this intruder to not be bombing that command armor at all. And yeah, I mean, here's a bad situation for red though. There's only 26 Pietro Zemeckis against roughly 90 forces here. shouldn't be too long before this command armor, command jeep, is forced to move, and it does have places to go. It can move like right here, just for a second, claim that point. Score doesn't change, and we do in fact see that blue has stopped the bleeding, which is very, very good. Stopped the bleeding and can now push forward. They have in fact grabbed both 2-point zones, which is huge, and they have another Grizzly CP coming in, so they might be able to grab this 1-point base and actually move in, do some actual damage. Of course, is always good. Strop was moved at the try and deal some of these helicopters here, but looks like it's getting pushed off by these light riflemen. Light riflemen, of course, do have the Dragon rocket launcher, can do substantial amounts of damage to vehicles and tanks, and this will become kind of a main battleground. There's a pretty massive over investment in this 1 point. There's, you know, almost short of 200 infantrymen here, so as long as they continue pumping out tanks and pushing this zone, they should be fine. But keep in mind, this is a pretty crazy push here by Pangu, just continuing to push forward with this command tank. Oh, there's another command vehicle here, of course. And I understand this is a cool strategy to do, but I don't know if it's a wise strategy. If they start targeting this T-80U, ooh, that can be bad. Luckily, it seems, however, for him that Nexel is in fact not targeting the T-80U, and will be able to continue pushing like this, but it's going to get pretty brutal pretty soon. For one player or the other, I should say. And there's some cute things you can do with a command tank. You can push into this area with all tanks, put your command tank in the corner here and deny the reinforcement zone. And that way you can just sort of keep moving at your tanks and isolate them as well. It makes this base isolated and as well this base isolated. So there's lots of cool tactical things you can do with the T-80UK. I'm just afraid they're just too cute. Just way too cute a place for this to work. And actually, there's another group of Pietro Zemeckis deployed in the force here to fend off the U.S. Marines, and this command will stay in play, which is crazy. It shouldn't stay in play. Where's that other Jeep at? There was another Jeep. Might have died already. That is kind of crazy, actually, for it to have died already. In fact, yes, it looks like it has been vanished off the map. So that's the end of that one. In fact, they did get 1 point before it died, so that's wonky and interesting. Actually, artillery fire on the T-80UK, of course. Oh, drop some Thunderbolt shots on the T-80Q, and it's shaken. It's taking some pretty bad hits, and here comes another batch of payload. Will it do some damage? Big question. Looks like no. No damage done, and T-80UK survives. It will need, of course, a supply truck to keep it alive, but so far, so good. I will say that immediately it'll be like, dead! But for now, it's so far, so good. Speaking of which, oh my god, so close, but so far away. Almost got a pretty good shot, but that calls in the bombers, and this is where suicide tactics will, in fact, pay off. Just barely missing the Grizzly, which just inched its way out of there, and survives. They do, however, know that there is, in fact, going to be a Grizzly here around this vicinity, so they can bomb that area pretty consistently. As well, this area has pretty well been suckered down with AT. And this is the kind of interesting stuff we're talking about. This is wide open fields. This is the dream of tank warfare. We actually see a helicopter being deployed here. It's got some of those beautiful Kokon Sakharov's rockets, which do insanely high amounts of damage. Getting a good stun off on one of these chieftain tanks, and the Bradley will go down. And there's actually no AA around. The Martyr Roland 2 is slowly moving up for Nexel, but it just might be a little bit too late. It should be able to fire from as soon as it gets past this bush hedgerow here. Chieftain, of course, out of control, won't get there in time, and the helicopter actually going to pull back just in time, and oh my god, recon helicopter will go down for freezies, and that's not good. And just look at the number of stuff. We have this Lars 2, which is, you know, a very new niche unit that showed up all of a sudden. The very awkward Jeep with rockets on it. It's a really awkward looking vehicle. If you haven't seen like this thing is absolutely crazy. It's like a guy's driving a fire truck with a turret on it. But you know, that's what we'll expect when we see North Korea and Wargame Red Dragon. You know, that's what we're going to expect. And I'm surprised by the almost lackluster number of tanks actually being deployed by either side here, or AT, as these Leopard 2A4s are going to be able to push forward and do some pretty crazy damage. Now we do see some artillery fire. Doesn't hit the lobs, so that's not good. And there's a Conquerors that will in fact fire some nice shots here. Look at this crazy split randomly done here. Unfortunately slows down the approach and doesn't really do anything right now. Just because there's no artillery. He deploys his US Marines, however, Lob 25s will continue forward, and this could be devastating. There's only 6 Lekka Piotas here, which of course are from the country of Poland? Is that Poland? 30 Marines here, one left. This Jeep should have seen its days, and maybe too much of an overinvestment in the middle here by Red, but he will be able to deploy another Jeep on this middle location, grab this base, and make things all well again. And in fact, yes, Command Jeep will go down. Just the bombs, random bombs, and actually going to use this Jeep to once again resecure this location, which once again is stopping the flooding, but still +1 somewhere. Where's this extra point coming from? Obviously this middle base location here. Yes, it is. And we'll see a slow creep here again by the Ciemni, who will grab this location. Here comes a Mirage. Going to drop another payload on the location, and bombs away. Will it hit the target? It does hit the infantry. Doesn't kill them, but misses the target. And just infantry battles galore. We see some Hazervayermit here with some Piochas and Mechs. That's some great names for some infantry. And this battle for the middle has been actually very consistent. I mean, realistically, if I was to be embedded, I would not want to be embedded with these guys, because that is a death sentence. Speaking of death sentences, the battle for this location is pretty well softened up. The number of tanks in the field for Red has insanely decreased on this location, and now their forces are suffering from the open field clumping, which is a pretty big problem. It allows them to get picked off while not picking off themselves. Kind of a problem here. And yeah, this is, I think this is just going to become massively standard play. Just napalm towns and hope that it doesn't spread to your own infantry. Because literally, like, this fire is just barely covering a little bit of his infantry. Could give him a small disadvantage, but of course the supreme power of infantry in buildings is so good. And yeah, just almost any engagement where there's some small amount of infantry facing off against a lot of infantry that aren't in buildings, it almost seems like the building ones always win, no matter what. There's some Vide Subcari. These are your generic shock troopers, almost running out of ammunition. They've been firing so many rounds on these very armored units. And we'll probably run out of RPK ammunition before they can get any damage done. They'll be forced to bring out the old-fashioned VZ-58. Yeah, like, I know what that is. And actually, suddenly, things have shifted. We see the command Jeep has in fact gone down. We have a +2 now for Ciemni, and now they might be able to regain control. I always want to stress might, because at this point, anything can happen. There could be a radical shift here where they're able to get this command Jeep. It's possible that there could be networks of bombers that just hit random command Jeeps. You don't know. There's actually an insanely high amount of bombers here for the 4th Shock Army, and they've just been doing very, very good with them. These guys have been running out of AA rockets more than they've been killing the aircraft. That's how well they're doing with them. Now, keep in mind, we're at a pretty stabilized position here for the Ciemni. They have been overwhelmingly have map dominance, and you can actually just draw it almost down the middle until you get to this bottom location, which is massively overinvested in, considering what they're protecting and where they're going with this. And yeah, there's a reinforcement point here, and yes, this Conquerors is hitting it, and that is awesome. But there's a lot of defense here, and they might need to hit some other weak spots, just reshift these forces. Because we have 2 players here, Pengu and Dr. KGB, so that's something. And look at this, we have a command vehicle coming in, but it's immediately spotted. Immediately spotted by Camel, calling in the air support, immediately try to deal with this, or some artillery, is that what I'm trying to say? Get some artillery. And yeah, they need to stop bleeding. They absolutely need to stop bleeding. Basically, it almost seems like the tactic for 4th Shock should be to just survive, keep their high score. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, radical moves. Now, if he was to continue pushing forward and get this command Jeep, that would be huge. It looks like he's going to micro backwards, trying to outrange these infantry, pick them off as he can, as there is an anti-tank Milan here firing rockets. It's actually got 3 left, so a push here will be very successful. Of course, he can't know that. T-72s pick off a lot of infantry there. Need to really just push in this way, because realistically, there's nothing in this town here. A really well-positioned infantry could actually grab that if he was in fact know it. And oh my god, that's exactly what we're talking about. Vehicle will in fact go down to an air assault, and suddenly we're back to stalemate. The bleeding has ended. Currently, 4th Shock Legion have a pretty massive lead, but they're using a very unusual tactic of bringing tanks to a town fight, and that of course is not very good. Will they be at least microing backwards? They will be, that's good enough. And it's such an odd tactic, it's so European escalation-esque, and people still do it. Speaking of which, was able to get a few mortal shell seeds in, but really not enough to do anything. Gonna get some bites of carries in, they should be able to do a little bit more, and they should be able to grab this location. Might sacrifice the helicopter? Yes, they will. Lot of Stingers, of course, have been deployed. These are an AA team, an infantry AA team. Very cheap one, too. It looks like 5 or 10 points each. And on the top flank, Pietro Zemeckis moving into the woods here, and will be able to kill off everything. The Lod Stinger will die. I said, the Lod Stinger will die. You asshole. And looks like this IP Bradley should go down pretty well soon. There is also a helicopter coming in, and there's, other than the Stinger, there's no real AA. And there we go, the Lod Stinger has died. In fact, the IFV did die, and we have 30 reinforcing Marines. That should also die, realistically. Now, in this world of funny flanks, you have to know that there's no real cover here. Everything that's here is visible with recon and can be picked off by a single TADU with its reflex rockets. That's how crazy it is. Looks like he has them turned off though, because he is using his tank destroyer weaponry to do what he can. TADU, okay, of course, moving up again. This bad boy, this destructor, this destroyer, this 5 veteran command vehicle. 5 veteran command vehicle. Say that again. That's kind of a crazy concept. And getting tons of kills, TADUs pounding on this chieftain MK with lots of T-72s to support. Here comes a tornado though. Oh, MiGs just deployed just in time, trying to get this TADU, but just intercepting like crazy. Gotta withdraw these very quickly before the Tomcats get them. And this could finally be useful, actually. If he can, basically he has to get beyond this line of attack here. If he can get here, he can pick up all the reinforcements, he can pick up all the infantry, and he can basically isolate this Gulf base. That would be absolutely huge and put him in a winning position. The defense of the Ciemni has, of course, kept him at bay so far this game, using these tornadoes, using lots of non-atypical weapons against tanks, I guess I would say, as giant evil balls of units will be mobbing forward. And, you know, a person who doesn't use rockets unless against tanks is a good player. It means they're not wasting their ammunition on crappy things like vehicles, because you don't want to waste them on vehicles, especially if they're empty vehicles. That's even worse. They're not cheap as far as resources go. And actually able to clear off all this area here, nothing here. They should be able to once again put in another little command vehicle here and deny this point. And once again, it's kind of flopped around. Looks like we're going to see a +1 gain as a command tank, a Leopard 2 command tank actually placed on this forward base here. Now, of course, that's not going to stop the helicopter from firing on it, forcing it out of the location. And, oh my god, it gets one hit, 1/3 of the health gone here. It's completely forced to vacate, though. We have another rocket firing, and looks like it's a sock blow, spinning out of control and hits nothing. Actually has some modal stroke. He's walking across the way, trying to bait off some attacks so that his tanks can move in and do some killing. But, ooh, this might cause some plans to fail, as we see artillery, rocket artillery firing on a broad stroke. Doesn't actually get a single stun off. Very unfortunate for them. And more bombs will be going off. Trying to maintain these positions here. Overwhelmingly. Need to get another command vehicle. And here we go. Command Jeep is going to go right back into Foxtrot. And suddenly, yes, we will see the 4th Legion once again gaining in the points. They have actually isolated this Delta base, and they're bringing in a second vehicle, which is kind of weird and bothersome. Is this like a decoy vehicle? Like, oh, it's a helicopter, actually. That's a really weird vehicle to decoy in. And it's a double. It's not really needs to be there. It's bizarre. You don't really see a lot of helicopter commands. It's very rare these days that you see those, just because they're so flimsy. They're so easy to kill. But if this is a 100-point helicopter command, think about that. It's the same thing as a command jeep. You might as well just get only those things. The only difference, of course, is it can be hit by AA, which is pretty big. And, yeah, that would suck absolutely. And look at this, a Spetsnaz has gotten position. I wonder how much vision this gives him. Probably a nice bit. Yeah, actually gives him all the intel. He knows everything that's going on. There is, in fact, going to be a little bit of a vehicle coming in, but it's going to get immediately picked off by T-80 UKs, throwing those reflex rockets to protect their recon, their eyes. They're giving them all the information. And they did reveal themselves, of course, which is not good. And, yeah, I mean, doesn't that get the useless helicopter? And it was a useless helicopter. It didn't do anything. I mean, realistically, you should have placed it here. This would have been a great place. Because they cancel out this leopard. That'd be one big thing. And it would be harder to kill. Well, we see 40 Pietro Zamek trying to walk across, but unfortunately getting bombed. And even with this bombing, they've lost half their forces. They're still pretty viable to take this base. I mean, it's an AT gun here. In fact, oh my god, this leopard could just completely die while trying to run away. Well, is this time for a good cinematic shot? Is that what this is? So we zoom in on this leopard too, which is not even using a reverse command. Oh yes it is. Oh yes it is, and actually able to get away there. And that was pretty huge, as we're seeing some nice little glory shots actually going to get taken at the Milans, or what is he going after here? Leopard 2, apparently. Pietro Zamek can take this town. There's a lot of tank support here, however. That's a big deal. And, oh my god, Martyr Roland 2 comes in, snipes off this helicopter, and will move to its brand new post. As head of command tank protocols, and just as this Pietro Zamek gets in position, another group of infantry will come in. And with the infantry, with the tank support, this should be no problem. Absolutely repelled here. We see the bleeding continues here. +1 being gained here by Ciemni. They're able to just barely... Whoa! With +2 suddenly, they grab both these 2-4 bases here. And there's one advantage that Ciemni hasn't really taken advantage of. It's the fact that they control this road and this route. And yeah, there are some units here, but they haven't really prodded that. I would think at least one recon or one infantry or something would think about breaking through the middle and grabbing here. Speaking of which, we do have a random command vehicle coming up. I don't know if it's going to cancel out Delta or what, but if the 4th Shock Army wants to stay in this, they're going to have to really stop this bleeding. That was a good Coke. So we have a pretty massive ball here. 3 T-80Us, one of which is a command. I'm going to go ahead and rush forward and pick off where they can. First shot, of course, is an empty vehicle carrier, which has nothing on it at all. And the next looks like it will be a single Heverme, which will be walking across the field. And easily be picked off by ridiculous mothballs. And oh my god, here comes 2 intruders. This is going to be some pretty massive destruction here. Double stuns and triple, quadruple stuns. Everything stunned. Unfortunately, not tons of damage here. Might have even given up some bet and saying, oh my god, the command jeep might find, or command tank might actually finally die. It's only got 1 hit point left on it. The rocket hits a lucky command tank. It's over for it. And oh my god, Tornado's gonna come in and shoot. Will it be enough? No. In fact, the command tank will stay alive. Looks like he's going to try and micro backwards all T-80Us. Keep his T-72s, of course, up front to try and soak some of that damage, deal the damage. And T-80U just needs to get out of there. Needs to actually not engage there at all. We see some MiGs coming in to try and support. Thunderbolt does get stunned. They're going to run around for a second pass, however, kind of a risky business here, and gets their target. Will they be able to get here in time, though? There are some Tomcats on the chase. One does get killed. Support from a Martyr Roland 2 in the bushes here. And yeah, it looks like an overwhelmingly air victory here for the NATO forces. T-72, of course, still blocking this reinforcement point, still doing some pretty massive tank battles here. And I'm pretty sure both people have some sort of mobilized deck just by the ridiculous number of tanks they're able to engage here. And keep in mind, this is 3 variants so far we've seen of T-72s and 2 variants so far of T-64s. So this is a ridiculous number of tanks. Oh yeah, by the way, bleeding has stopped. We have a command that has been stuck here, just randomly. Might just get sliced off right now. And where's the other one? Stopped it. Oh, I see they've killed the tank here. So, very slow-paced game of of doom, is what I would say. Wow, look at that. He just got resupplied and just in time to get that airstrike come in. There's about, half the time left over for this match, and if Ciemni cannot gain points for a more consistent basis, they're in trouble. Especially considering that this mothball tanks is proving to be pretty cost effective, pretty good at doing what they're doing, able to knock out a lot of these big, expensive tanks from the NATO players. And in fact, going to try and push up and hit this leopard. Doesn't want it to get away, realizing it's just so close to dead. There's also a challenger moving up, so he's going to micro back his other T-80U as his command tank is actually going to take the bulk of the damage. Once again, I'm not always sure this is a great idea, but dear God, this is a 5 veteran command tank. You don't see that. T-72 is going to supply some cover support. We have crazy rockets going to hit. If they hit the command tank, that'll be very, very good, as this will allow the challenger to get some final shots off, but no. They're going to resupply all these with some Urals. Look at me, MP Urals we have here. Crazy amounts of MP Urals. And Intruder once going to try and come in for a standardized napalm on top, or sorry, not a napalm, a bomb right on top of the T-80 UKs. And looks like we have a solid miss. And we have Intruder coming in. Might get a good hit. Look at this crazy split here. Oh dear God. Look how that is so good. He actually evacuated and dodged that place with multiple vehicles at once. Pengu. Pengu, it's just you. You are so good, Pengu. You are so good. And so are you, Dr. KGB. You're also quite good. God, that's so good. That was just breathtaking. Rifleman trying to rush across will get picked off by the tanks, of course. This is kind of a part of the idea here. You want the Rifleman to soak the damage up front while you have an actual tank fire from the side. But considering these tanks, how veteran they are, how well they're doing, I can't see in any potential way these Striv 1306s actually doing any real damage here. Speaking of which, looks like we have some more bleeding happening the other way, unfortunately, for Ciemni, as 4th Shock has actually wiped out this 1-point base, this 1-point base, and this 1-point base, and this gives them a serious advantage with this one single Lima base. Pretty crazy here. And there's a small push coming up here to try and deal with this, but it's mostly Flak Panzer Jeffers, which aren't pretty good. If there was an AT in this area, which of course he does not have currently, he'd be able to wipe them all out very, very easily. And this is just really oddly positioned AA, truth be told. You probably don't want your AA completely at the front of the line. They have a really good range. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these Leopard 2s are getting used up here. Not a lot of T-80Us are dying in this battle. We've seen probably 1 T-80U die so far. How many Leopards have we seen die? 3, 4? And it's actually forcing multiple people to rally out more tanks to try and deal with this. And this could be the horse that breaks the camel's back, as the famous expression says, because there's still about another 120 points, give or take a 1 point or something. So that has to be made up here by the 4th Shock Army. I always struggle with their name because they don't have a nice name. They have a long name, and they don't make up points as well. They're ahead. It's actually Ciemni. It has to make up those points. Looks like a Bradley IFV, is on a right-click command on some location and is now moving in with its Bushmaster and will probably get pushed off by T-80U. Yes, it does. And Intruder once again going to try and do that napalm one more time, see if it works. One of the big problems with napalm, with artillery, all that sort of stuff, constant supply of that, is that when you do it on tanks and they don't die, generally what happens is that they all just rank up, because any unit near any unit that takes damage will also gain experience. Speaking of which, we have some bold moves here. We have 80 infantry, or I guess 100 if it's U.S. Marines. Going to rush across here. Of course, is some Conquerors and a few Mortal Chelseas here. They might be able to grab this position here. In fact, no, it's the Heijerheimermet, and they might be able to grab this bush location. There is such an insanely high tank count here, however, and the infantry are just kind of scary, but not quite super scary at this moment. Dear God, I am thirsty. This artillery barrage, of course, has been brought to you by Coca-Cola. This is the brand that I've come to know and trust. And even though I currently live in Pepsi country, I buy Coca-Cola because it's 10 cents cheaper per can. Thank you, Costco. Speaking of which, we have artillery fire pounding this location as the Hager regiments are moving this location, and this might cause a little bit of a problem with these tanks and pushing, specifically if he stages some AT here. Even some AT vehicles will do very well. And another round of napalm, we're going to grab this location. Actually could be, oh, sorry, not napalm. It's the intruder, so it's a bomb. And this is actually going to allow them to move into this location, grab it, and should stall some pushes. It will definitely make them rethink about security. That's a definite. There's still this big giant wide open field that's still a thing, still happening, and there's still going to be skirmishes between the two with challengers and tanks and multiple brand names of tanks like this Wilk tank, T-72 Wilk, named after Wilk Chamberlain, of course, the famous Polish basketball player. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what's called Wilk. I assume it's an acronym for some kind of mechanical thing that goes on top of it. You know, tank destroyer is going to try and fly around some stuff, just not really getting crazy percentages there. Well, command tank, however, is that still alive? Yes, it's actually fully resupplied, ready to go again. And this feels like a bragging rights like type thing. I mean, imagine if the tournament was instead winning, but instead was how many kills can you get with a command tank? And it was all like pact versus pact and NATO versus pact and whatnot, you know, all still mixed and whatnot. How crazy would that be? Small little mothball tanks moving up. They really want to get challengers, Leopard 284s, these really big expensive tanks which are just not quite as veteran, and sacrifice the T-72 for it. Very, very bad, Pengu. You were a very, very bad boy. And once again, still trying to do this general same strategy. This is what we call the Italian campaign. Of course, if you're not a big World War I buff, and maybe World War II as well, the Italians tried to do a single maneuver something like 15, 16 times, and they failed every single time. They were never able to cross a single river. They just kept getting pushed back over and over and over and over. And that's what this is. This is our Italian flank here. We're just ridiculously never getting anywhere. Very sneaky position, by the way. Still hasn't been spotted, which is crazy, because it's completely isolated. Who knew? And, oh my god, actually not doing too much damage there. Even the Prizik Igla, which is completely out of AA, has survived this attack. And we might be running out of tank reinforcements here. We're seeing a lot of AA actually being deployed here. Tons, the Flak Panzers and the Dragons. But not a lot of tanks being added in. Lots of supplies for existing tanks, but nothing new. So that could be problematic for blue. Who's having problems being blue? Excuse me, my dog is growling, which means I have to give him a treat to distract him. Very simple procedure of bad parenting. You give him a treat after he sits down. It's all nice and friendly. Yeah. You probably didn't hear that growl. Looks like some Yui is going to go ahead and get thrown away here. And just all in support of these U.S. Marines trying to push up. Also, Lab 25 moving in as well. Could be enough to actually break. If they can actually just move up into the command vehicle here, they might be fine. Looks like they're going to go ahead and do the stationary play. And of course, if you are moving, you do less damage unless you have really high stabilizers. And if you start moving, you can gain position, but you take more damage, deal less damage. It's kind of a problem. So it's a really weird choice for you to make. In some instances, it's absolutely beneficial to just sit. And in positions like this where, you know, you're kind of out in the open, it's very beneficial to run forward, especially, well, not even especially, just because you have the numbers advantage is good enough. Single shot goes off on this command jeep. Not really enough to kill it at all. And speaking of which, looks like we're looking at some pretty stalemate type situations here. All along the map, actually, and this could potentially be the end map that we're looking at here. And MiG's not quite doing anything. They're going to go all the way across this open field. This is a really good position here to place AA. Look how every single jet fighter has to go across to get here. And actually going to sacrifice a lot of these jets to get some kills here. I don't know what he's doing? This is really bizarre. It would be less bizarre if he was losing. It's really bizarre because he's winning. Usually when you're winning, you hold back on all your good stuff for like those nice niche moments. And when you're winning, you get kind of desperate. You go like, well, I'm gonna throw 1,000,000 aircraft at him, and hopefully it destroys him. And that's just not the case. That's not what happened there at all. And yeah, I don't see a way in which Ciemni can push this. I just don't see a way. I think this is going to be officially a pretty big victory here for the 4th Shock Army. Of course, this isn't... Or is this? Yes, this... No, I'm trying... Yes, this is the loser bracket, so this is potentially the end for Ciemni if they cannot push through here. Deploying some Cobras kind of indicates that they're running out of tanks, which is always not good. But really, there's no AA here, so they can go to town with these really expensive helicopters, and they might be able to make something of this. If they can just do enough damage, that is. It's all they really need to do is get some commands down. They have 10 minutes left. Only 10 minutes to get some commands down. And this command has been untouched. It's been getting resupplied. He could just walk an infantry across into it. Absolutely could do that. Nothing would do anything there. There's commands been around for a while to attack things, just really getting desperate. And sometimes desperation works. But that's usually in 1v1. In team games, usually desperation means like, well, I will go in 1v4 by myself, which just doesn't work out. You have to have coordinated desperation, which of course isn't really desperation at all. It's strategy. And if you're desperate, you can't have strategy. That's just how it goes. And Ciemni will begin to trickle again. Looks like they have in fact secured the Delia? Really? I'm using the Russian ones? I didn't realize that. Delia. Maybe, is it mixed? Has it always been mixed? Because in the American phonetic system it's Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. Oh, there's a T there. There we go. I feel ridiculous for saying that. Delia. That's probably not even true in the Russian one either. That's how bad I am. And so we're going to see a +1 trickle, and let's do some quick math here. The math is good. They can still win this. They need to hold for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and they will actually overwhelm their opponents and score, which is not easy to do. Their opponents can start mass spamming commands and just dropping them on points. Having multiple commands on spread across an area, that's absolutely something they can do. They can place like a command here and gain points themselves. But this is absolutely possible. It's actually going to be something that seemed... I kind of wrote them off, personally. I thought they were dumb. But Ciemni can actually still win this. They need to get not many points left, less than 100. And if they can actually knock out another command, that would be huge. And looks like here's Desperation setting in. And once again, it's always weird when Desperation sets in for the guys that you wouldn't suspect. They're going to use their command tank, which has been kind of the superstar this whole time, to knock out this point here. Very smart, of course. Very, very good. And going to use infantry to secure this forward location. The T-80U, of course, wipes out that U.S. Marine, and suddenly things are looking a little bleak again for Ciemni. So they can get knocked out here by 4th Shock Army, who's just been doing phenomenal with these bombers, by the way. Just non-stop, not losing too many of them. There have been ridiculous numbers of air superiority fighters in the air to deal with them, and they've just been very cost effective. Looks like one might die here. Ooh, it's bad. And I think that would be a desperation one as well. Moving up his Strop 2 to try and go into an interesting position, as he has a... Is this command helicopter? I thought so. It looks like a command helicopter. We'll try and grab this point here. And one of the weird things that could happen here, of course, is that we'll see this command tank either get overwhelmed and leave like it is, or it could also cause this Grizzly CP to leave. It's only a cheapy tank, or vehicle. Cheapy vehicle. Now we're still looking at not a guaranteed win. This might be one of the closer matches of the entire tournament. Usually by this point, one team is steamrolling the other, but this is for all of the marbles. This is winner takes all. Loser leaves the tournament. In fact, the command helicopter was picked off and ridiculously destroyed by a flak panzer. And, you know, I'm not really seeing any other command vehicles. So this T-80 UK is kind of the the big dog right now. If this T80 UK dies, that's it. And we have some Motos jockeys actually firing on some interesting named. What the hell has happened there? Sorry for that. I just got minimized. Absolutely bizarre. Yeah, interesting named infantry. We're gonna see some bombs going off here. Add a little bit of support, but I don't really think that 40 Motos Jockey is gonna deal with 200 infantry. That's a ridiculous amount of infantry. So yeah, we're at that kind of weird point, of course. No returnish type stuff. We need to see some pretty stellar shots here. That was a pretty good one. Gets him down 4 whole hit points with that. For the 4th Legion, they'll have to bring in supply trucks to keep this T80 UK alive, which they've been doing the whole game. For our NATO players, we'll need to see them being super, super hyper aggressive. Lots of aircraft, lots of helicopters, lots of cheese, lots of craziness. Just trying to wipe out any commands they can. Because once the 5-minute mark passes, it is conceivable that they will lose. Indefinitely, but also possibly crazily maybe. And good bomb shot is good. 1 hit point left on the T80 UK. And this is what I'm talking about. They need those supply trucks coming in now to deal with this. Because if you're a NATO player in this position, you're always going to do the same thing. You're going to throw everything you can at destroying whatever you can. And I think we're hitting that point of no return right now for Ciemni. There are some Tomcats in the air, not quite playing as desperate as they actually are, of course. Tomcats are air superiority fighters, which do have some ground attack ability, and if they were desperate, they would be just throwing those in. We do see a +1 suddenly, however, and that's a magical moment for some reason. I don't know where. It looks like they re-secured this base here. Actually, we completely missed this. Leopard 2A4 marches across in Desperation, picks off this vehicle, this command jeep, and no new command jeeps are being deployed here. This is just too close to call right now. It could go either way. We are seeing more tanks getting rallied out, but we're not seeing more command vehicles, and that's kind of what they need right now. They need another command vehicle map. Just anything to slow this slow death here. Complete support here for the T80 UK, but if that T80 UK dies, it could be over. We're now looking at an intruder coming in. Intruder gonna fire, and my god, just misses the T80 UK, which of course only has 1 hit point left. And there's a huge, crazy flank of tanks moving across the track field. Been planning this the entire time. Look at all these infantry they've been using this entire time. Leopard 2A4s and all these out of position tanks just got completely crushed. This is not going well. This is not going well at all. But it's all about the numbers right now. He needs to eliminate key important targets. The T80 UK, this WD-43, which of course I'm assuming is some sort of industrial lubricant and the command vehicles inside of a can. That's what I'm just assuming here. They need to continue pushing forward. They can't stop for these small engagements. In fact, the command jeep does go down. We're now looking at +3, and this could be the biggest comeback of the entire tournament. Ciemni is rushing across the field. They've grabbed the Lima base themselves. They now have a command vehicle in this area, and they will in fact get a +3. The T80 UK still living. If they can get that, that will guarantee their victory. But right now, we're looking at 2 minutes left. The flow is good for them. Absolutely good. It looks like 4th Shock has thrown away way too many vehicles, way too much stuff, playing more desperate than they should have been, and really lost their position here. As absolutely amazing. Ciemni has actually won this game. It doesn't reflect just yet, but sooner or later it will. And there's absolutely nothing that can be done here by 4th Shock. They're absolutely out of this tournament. This was a crazy, well-orchestrated tactical play performed almost entirely by Nexi. Nexi has been harvesting these tanks the entire game, keeping their veterancy high. Look at all these Leopard 2A4s with 5 vet. Jeopard with 3. Leopard 4, just doing really well keeping these guys alive. All for his final push with 4 Leopard 2A4 pushes. Absolutely crazy. Now we're looking at the shoe being on the other foot. There's absolutely nothing that can be done here. Nothing, because this is such a last-minute act of desperation that now they're guaranteed to lose. They've landed a helicopter, a command helicopter, on this location, but it just won't matter. They're not ahead anymore. They could have won this if they had just sat down, got more AT on the ground, got a little more AA, and stopped this massive ball push but unfortunately their resources went other ways. And congratulations to Ciemni, well-deserved victory. I will guarantee you this is one of the closest matches you will see in this tournament. I had written them off myself. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more matches from Ciemni, who will be continuing in the losers bracket against what, make sure to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my playlist if you don't want to know any more specific, and yeah, I'll have other great stuff even when the tournament's kind of going on, like the big Go For Wargame tournament. I'll be covering that as well. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next match. But first, we have to see something. Where? Oh, you know what? I don't have that information, do I? No, I don't get to see the tank kills. Ah! Oh well. Maybe somebody, Pengu, will tell me how many kills he has at the TDU. It's quite impressive. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next match.